Butch, the Dryad Rogue, stealthily moves across the penultimate floor of the Archdevil's prison. As he skulks, Hoot, the Ravenfolk cleric, trips and falls, his shield clattering to the ground, exposing his hiding spot and alerting the prison guards, a group of cackling imps. The rest of our intrepid heroes rush from the shadows, their cover blown. Fighting off the imps, they race up to the final floor. As Fifi, the fairy archer, unleashes a volley of magical arrows at the demon guards, Morgan, the elven druid, slams his staff into the ground near the stairwell. More demons begin to climb the stairs, but Morgan causes a large wall of thorns to block the devils from advancing further. Next to him, Bruno, the half-devil sorcerer, takes a potion of healing and fires a bolt of lightning out of a flintlock pistol before falling back behind his companions. Across the hall, Maddie, the orcish bard, seems to have gotten herself cornered by another demon. But it was a clever ruse, like a skilled matador. Maddie coaxes the demon to charge, sending it colliding into an important magical device, breaking it and immobilizing the demon. While searching for the man they need to break out of prison, Butch and Hoot become locked in fierce combat with a devil covered in animated chains. His chains lash out at the duo, twisting and writhing like snakes. In rebuttal, Butch takes out his cutlass, and a burst of ice and frost leaves the hilt, slicing into the devil. Hoot shouts prayers to his god and provides just enough healing for Butch to stay conscious and fighting. Butch looks around, and out of the corner of his eye, he sees the gargoyle that they had come to break out. Spells fly, weapons clash. The adventurers rush towards one another, joining hands just as the archdevil herself teleports towards the group. Butch activates his ring of teleportation, and the group vanishes, and not a moment too soon. What I have just described to you is the climactic battle in a game of Dungeons & Dragons that I ran. But what is Dungeons & Dragons, I hear you ask? Why can he read my mind, you ask again, growing more concerned for the power I wield? Well, I'll answer that first question. Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D for short, is a fantasy genre tabletop role-playing game. Genre-wise, think Lord of the Rings, The Chronicles of Narnia, Game of Thrones, or Aragon. It is a world populated by miracles and magic, monarchs and tyrants, abominations and monstrosities, and a war eternally waged between the forces of good and evil. A tabletop role-playing game is a game between multiple people in which one person acts as the world, and the other players create characters that interact with the world. Role-playing means that players assume the role of somebody new in order to interact with the game's world. Tabletop distinguishes itself from video game RPGs because it is physical and played with other people. For context, here's a basic overview of the rules. The Dungeon Master, or the DM, makes a setting for the players to interact with. The players make characters to interact with the world, determining their heritage, race, think elf or dwarf, their adventurer's archetype, class, think wizard or thief, and their history in the world, backstory and personality. In gameplay, the DM describes a scene and the players interact. Some actions will take a combination of luck and skill, like tracking a monster or intimidating a shop clerk. The outcome is determined by how high you roll on a 20-sided dice, the D20. The DM narrates this outcome, and then you react to that, and so on and so forth. But why does this even matter? Who wants to play this weird game anyway? Yeah, I can still hear you. I'm not going to tell you why. You should be afraid. As it turns out, a lot of people play D&D. Big celebrities like Robin Williams, Shrek, Mike Myers, Stephen Colbert, and Vin friggin' Diesel. I'm not joking. That hunk of muscle plays this basement nerd dice game. In addition to this, it's becoming more and more relevant with the rise in popularity of shows like Critical Role, Not Another D&D Podcast, Dungeons & Daddies, Dimension 20, and The Adventure Zone. And these are just the more notable ones. In addition, YouTube has provided a platform for lots of quality D&D content, with such creators as Zbashu, Puffin Forest, Dingo Doodles, Joecat, Runesmith, XP to level 3, Adon, Tulak and Mango, and so many more. Also, I must begrudgingly give thanks to Stranger Things, who put the name of the game into the minds of people who would have otherwise never have heard about it. Thanks, I guess. Whatever. Anyway, now you know this game isn't some weird, obscure nerd thing, but still, you ask, why is this game valuable? You're really bumming me out with all these negative thoughts. Why did I even learn to read minds if all you're gonna do is be so negative? Besides being really fun, D&D teaches life skills. By allowing us to create characters, it allows us to use our imaginations. We are put into situations unique to the fantasy genre that require people to think outside the box. We learn how to tell stories, both on our own, by writing backstories and characteristics during character creation, and by the collaborative storytelling that D&D offers us when we play the game. For instance, imagine for a moment you and your adventuring group come across a small goblin child. What would you do? Some might be suspicious and try to discern the motives of this goblin. Some would move along without a second thought. Some would flat out kill it out of caution, so it did not become a problem later. Some groups would even adopt the goblin and bring it along their adventure. As this example shows, problem solving, conflict resolution, cooperation between multiple people, and social skills are large parts of each interaction in D&D, and this can extend to the real world and every decision we make. To borrow some words from 17th level geek and Dungeons & Dragons aficionado, Ethan Gilsdorf, as with any good social activities, you don't realize that you're learning lessons. You'll be having too much fun to focus on morals. All of the useful life skills that you learn are just a symptom of a well-run game. And D&D provides the framework for social interactions between people. It unites them as a group with a common goal, that goal being to play D&D. Ethan Gilsdorf pointed out that especially for kids, it can be hard to find a social group, mainly because some people aren't comfortable with established clubs. Some people don't like sports or public speaking, or the clubs normally offered. D&D can not only provide social interaction, it's also structured as an interactive story that you have partial control over. It empowers people to write their own story, to carve their own myths. It's a priceless experience. All you need for D&D is an open mind and a willingness to be someone in a fantasy world. D&D also opens up the door to self-exploration. What better way to examine your identity than to play as an orc wielding a bloody, twisted mace? Although that might be a comical example, D&D creates a time to reflect on who you are and who you aren't. It allows you to explore different roles, different archetypes, different people. For instance, in the games that I've played a varied cast, such as a wily old man, a chief teetotaling cleric, a haunted, melancholic woman, and a mite-head jock reconciling with their cult background. That is what is so freeing about fantasy. It's all your choice. You can design a charismatic spellcaster, or a burly fighter, or an intelligent historian with a bullwhip. It belongs in a museum. And then you become them. You get to be who they are, and you gain the power and knowledge that they have. On a more personal note, I'd like to share how D&D has helped me. I have anxiety and dysgraphia. Dysgraphia is a disorder that makes it so I have a difficult time getting my words onto a page. The physical action of writing was and still is a problem I have. I used to have no outlet. I just let my dysgraphia and anxiety boil over into anger. I'd lash out, act aggressively, and make decisions that were wrong of me to make. But then, I found D&D. Gonna take a quick sidebar real fast. Around this time, I also started therapy and martial arts, which were also outlets for me. D&D is not a cure-all or a substitute for therapy, but it did help me immensely. The game made me more social. I expanded my circle of friends. I became more confident in what I did. I learned how to organize my ideas better. I learned patience. I can do basic arithmetic really quickly. Role-playing provides an escape from social pressure and the real world, something I needed. I'm glad that I, as well as many others, have gotten more help and a more healthy outlet from anxiety and stress through Dungeons & Dragons, for nudging me in the right direction to learn skills, open up, and care about myself. Overall, I hope that this has convinced some of you to check out this wonderful game. With all these benefits, it's a no-brainer. I mean, what do you have to lose? Roll up a new character, break out your best set of clicky-clack math rocks, pray to RNGesus, take a chance, and roll the dice. I hope to see some of you in a fantasy realm sometime soon! Thank you.